Imagine standing before the most ruthless military machine in the world. You are chained, beaten, and surrounded by battle-hardened samurai holding blades to your neck. They hand you a piece of paper. It is an oath of absolute submission. Sign it, and you live out your days in quiet humiliation. Refuse, and you face one of the most gruesome executions known to history. For the leaders of the Ryukyu Kingdom, this wasn't a hypothetical question.
An era of peace
in the year
was about to
1611, an entire nation's royalty broke under the pressure and signed their freedom away.
While
All of
others
them,
submitted,
except
one man stood alone.
His name
Jana
was Jana
Ueekata
Ueekata,
refused to surrender.
and his refusal to bow to the Satsuma Empire didn't just cost him his life. It triggered a chain of events that preserved a forbidden culture, birthed a secret weaponless fighting style we still use today, and secured his place as one of the most fiercely defiant warriors in human history. This is the untold story of the 1609 invasion, the day the samurai empire met the man they could not break. To understand the sheer terror of what was coming, you have to understand the predators waiting across the sea. It's the early 17th century. Japan has just crawled out of the Sengoku Jidai, a 100-year bloodbath of constant civil war. The men who survived this era aren't just soldiers, they are apex predators. Among the deadliest are the Satsuma Clan. Based in southern Japan, the Satsuma are furious, fiercely independent, and heavily armed with a devastating new technology, matchlock firearms, known as arquebuses. But with Japan finally at peace, the Satsuma have a massive problem. They have thousands of hungry, violent veterans, and no wars left to fight. They needed money, they needed land, and they needed a target. Just a few hundred miles to the south lay the perfect victim, the Ryukyu Kingdom. Today, we know it as Okinawa, but back then, Ryukyu was a wealthy, independent maritime hub. They were diplomats and traders, not conquerors. They were the jewel of the East China Sea. The Satsuma sent envoys with a simple, terrifying message: submit to our authority, pay us tribute, or burn. Inside the Ryukyuan royal court, panic set in. Most advisors urged the king to surrender peacefully, but Jana Ueekata, a brilliant martial commander and diplomat, slammed his fist on the table. He knew that submitting to the Satsuma meant total enslavement. He expelled the Japanese envoys, knowing full well what it meant. War was inevitable. In the spring of 1609, the horizon off the coast of Ryukyu turned black with sails. A fleet of 100 Satsuma ships, carrying 3,000 battle-hardened samurai veterans, descended upon the island chain. Against them stood a Ryukyuan defense force that was severely outmatched. This was not an army of professional killers. This was a militia of islanders, guards, and loyalists armed with spears, swords, and bows. When the Satsuma landed, it wasn't just a battle. It was a technological slaughter. Jana Ueekata led the defense, hunkering his forces down in stone fortresses and along the beaches. The Ryukyuan warriors fought with a desperate, terrifying ferocity. They knew they were fighting for the very existence of their culture. But courage cannot stop lead. The Satsuma unleashed coordinated volley fire. Lines of smoke and fire ripped through the Ryukyuan defenses. This was a tactic perfected in the meat grinder of Japanese civil wars, and it completely overwhelmed the islanders. Castle by castle, beach by beach, the Satsuma pushed inland, leaving a trail of ash and bodies. Despite Jana's brilliant tactical retreats and fierce guerrilla ambushes, the math was simply against him. It took the Satsuma just weeks to breach the capital. The royal palace fell. The king was captured. And Jana Ueekata, bleeding and exhausted, was taken in chains. The Ryukyu Kingdom, after centuries of peace, had been utterly crushed. But for Jana, the real war was just beginning. The Satsuma didn't just want to conquer the land. They wanted to conquer the mind. They dragged the king of Ryukyu, along with Jana and the other high-ranking officials, back to mainland Japan. For over 2 years, they were kept as prisoners. The Satsuma subjected them to intense psychological warfare. They wanted to parade them in front of the shogun to show total dominance. Finally, in 1611, the Satsuma laid out their ultimate demand: The 15 Injunctions. This was a document of utter humiliation. It demanded that Ryukyu surrender all political autonomy, hand over their trade wealth, and swear permanent, unquestioning loyalty to the Satsuma lords. If they signed it, they could return home as puppet rulers. One by one, the broken Ryukyuan officials picked up the brush. Even the king, desperate to save what was left of his people, signed his name. Then they brought the document to Jana Ueekata. He looked at the paper. He looked at the samurai holding their blades, and he refused. The Satsuma were stunned. They offered him wealth. He refused. They threatened him with a horrific death. He refused. Jana knew that if every leader signed that paper, the spirit of his people would be extinguished forever. Someone had to show the islanders that the Satsuma were not gods. Someone had to show them how to stand up. His defiance threw the Satsuma into a rage. They couldn't let him live, or he would become a martyr. But they couldn't force him to sign. So they sentenced him to death. Historical accounts vary on the exact method of his execution. Some say he was beheaded. Others say he was subjected to the horrific punishment of being boiled alive. But what is universally agreed upon is how he faced it, without fear, without regret. Jana Ueekata died, but his final act of defiance accomplished exactly what he intended. When news of his sacrifice reached Okinawa, it lit a fire in the hearts of the people that the Satsuma could never put out. Terrified of another uprising, the Satsuma occupying forces instituted a brutal weapons ban. They confiscated every sword, every spear, and every rifle on the island. The Ryukyuan people were left completely defenseless, or so the samurai thought. Driven by the unbreakable spirit Jana had left behind, the islanders adapted. If they couldn't use swords, they would use their bare hands. If they couldn't forge weapons, they would use farming tools. Mill handles became tonfas, rice flails became nunchaku. And out of the shadows, in deep secrecy, they developed a lethal, weaponless martial art designed to crush samurai armor with a single strike. They called it T, which simply means hand. Today, the world knows it by another name, karate. Jana Ueekata lost his kingdom, and he lost his life. But in his refusal to surrender, he planted the seeds of a warrior culture that outlasted the samurai, outlasted the empires, and spread across the entire globe. If you want to see the exact tactics the Satsuma used to conquer Japan before they invaded Ryukyu, click the video on your screen right now. And if you believe Jana Ueekata is a true historical badass, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments what ancient battle we should cover next. I'll see you in the trenches.